Hello, I'm Laura the Library Lady, and thank you for joining me for this episode. The last few episodes, we've been talking about Katherine Johnson and hidden figures and the human computers. And today we will continue with that. This time, we're going to look at a higher level nonfiction book. Please remember that nonfiction books means true stories and fiction is make-believe. But everything about Katherine Johnson and the other human computers is true. So I have this wonderful book here that's for older students, and it's titled Hidden Humans, Computers, The Black Women of NASA. And it's it is by Sue Badford Edwards and Duchess Harris, PhD and she's a lawyer. Let's take a look at this book. It is for students for middle school and high school versus a book that's for younger students that we looked at in an earlier episode. Let's look in here. Oh, look. This book is signed by one of the authors, Duchess Harris. And we'll learn more about her in just a moment. Now this book, just like all books, has a title page, which tells you the name of the book, and a verso page, which is the back of the title page. And this book has many text features. Oh, and a table of contents that tells you all the chapters in the book. These are features of non-fiction books. I'm just going to read a few pages. There's the introduction, which introduces the book, but I'm going to start right here in chapter 1. We're going to learn about the human computers at NASA. This reads, Annie, Elsie, and the other 5 women computers hurry through the building, eager to see photographs that have been taken for an upcoming open house. The photographer of all 6 women at work was enlarged so visitors could see a view of what they did each day. As computers, they perform mathematical calculations for the engineers at the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, Lewis Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. When the women saw the photo, one of the other computers turned to Elsie and apologized. Oh, Annie, they cut you out of the picture. The fact that something was cut from the photograph wasn't surprising. Photographers crop anything that looks out of place or might steal the viewer's focus from the central image in the photo. This time, the photographer cropped out Elsie, the only black woman working alongside 5 white women. Elsie spoke to her supervisor, also a woman, about what had happened. Oh, I don't blame you, she said. I'd be upset too. Although Elsie had her supervisor's sympathy, nothing was done at that time. There was no Office of Diversity and Equal Opportunity. Today, this office is responsible for ensuring NASA gives all employees the same opportunities. When Elsie was cropped from the group photo, there were no laws that made this type of discrimination illegal, and there was no one to follow up on a complaint of this kind. Just like that, Elsie was removed from the view and hidden away. So that's one of the reasons why this series is called Hidden Figures. Now, remember in my earlier episode, I talked about when there's text for a picture, it's called a caption. So we have a picture of Miss Annie Elsie, and the caption reads, Annie Elsie played an important part at NASA as a computer, but the agency treated her as lesser because of her skin color. So the caption is right here. Remember, when you have words that explain a picture, that's called a caption. You can see it right here. And the font and the text feature is that they put it in a special colored font. Okay? And we have, if you look up here, this is the name of the chapter, so you know where you are. So I'm going to turn the page because there's another thing that we saw here. Ah, we also have two other boxes of text. This is extra information about what we're reading, and it's pulled out to create special emphasis. Think of it as being highlighted or material. I want to read it and see what it says. Date unknown. It's hard to say exactly when Annie Elsie was cropped from the photograph of the Computer Services Division at the Lewis Research Center. Elsie did not mention the exact date in the interview she gave NASA historians, but she started working at the lab in 1955. So the event must have taken place sometime after that. Okay, 1955. I believe it was in 1954 when the Supreme Court ruled on Brown versus the Board of Education that desegregated public schools. Oh, here's another box. Let me read that and see what it says. Oh, it's a direct quote from Miss Elsie herself. A direct quote is when someone records exactly what you say. This is what she said when she was interviewed. I didn't feel like I'm I didn't feel like I'm a minority. I'm out here to do a job, and I knew I had the ability to do it. And that's where my focus was, on getting the job done. I was intentionally trying to be a pioneer. She says, I was not intentionally trying to be a pioneer. A pioneer means someone who does something first. And we have a quote. When you have a series quote like that, there's many ways to do it. And we have a little tiny number 3 here. That indicates what we call a footnote. At the end of the book, we have all kinds of information. Because every time there's a quote, you have to do a footnote. We have a timeline of the book and the other African American human computers. We have essential facts and information that's true. We have a glossary where you can look up the terms if you don't know them. We have additional resources. This is all that's required for a nonfiction book. Source notes. These are the footnotes. All the footnotes. So when a person writes a nonfiction book, they have to have accurate facts and they have to give people credit. And then they have more information. So if you're ever wondering this is an index. So if you see something, you look it up and it tells you what page it's on. All of these are sections of a nonfiction book. And then they have about the authors, okay? So a nonfiction book always takes longer to write and longer to print and more expensive because there's so much research and so much hard work. And parents, this is a series. And on the back of this book, it lists all the titles of the series. And it's from the publisher's ABDO, which specializes in publishing nonfiction books for middle school and high school students. Finally, I have this flyer here about one of the authors, Dr. Duchess Harris, who specializes in nonfiction books. She has a PhD and her law degree. And I read the flyer. She specializes in racial justice and human rights and the judicial system. So there are many wonderful facts and information about Black engineers, or should I say Black computers at NASA. This is just one book. We have this other book, and of course the original Hidden Figures book. But did you know that Duchess is actually the granddaughter of one of the Black human computers? It says here, Dr. Harris is the granddaughter of Miriam Daniel Mann, who worked as a human computer at NASA from 1943 to 1966. So not only is she a professor and a lawyer, but she is the granddaughter of a human computer. So that is very wonderful. The last thing I would like you to see, and I've had this up, and parents, please take note of this because there's so many wonderful books. I got this a few months ago. A colleague of mine told me, Miss Brown, they have Katherine Johnson at Walmart. And I said, really? And I looked online because they weren't in my local store, and I found her, and I'm so proud to have her as a doll. And they also had Rosa Parks, and Rosa Parks, I have her as well. So I am a big Barbie collector. I love Barbie. So it's an honor for me to have this doll, and every doll that represents a beautiful person who's made our lives better. So parents, make sure you check this book out at the library. You may have to do it through ebook because everything's closed right now due to the virus and all the closures that we're experiencing across the world. But don't be upset. Please be calm. There's plenty of things that you could do with your children, whether they're little children, middle schoolers, or high school students. And you can always do research on the internet, but please check your sources to make sure they're true sources. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.